I'm going to play an audio clip here of a mother, Janet Downing, who tells how she cured her 25-year-old son of schizophrenia using Dr. Hoffer's nutritional treatment, which includes using large doses of niacin, as well as other nutrients that she will talk about. Hi, this is Larry Hobbs at fatnews.com. So here is the audio clip. It's an absolutely amazing story.
And now at this time I want to take a break, and I want to ask Janet Downing. Janet, are you here? To come forward to talk about her son. She did talk to us on Friday night, but this is such an important finding. Here's another example of a dedicated mother, very intelligent, treating her son and getting him well. I want Janet to tell you her story.
Thank you, Dr. Hoffer. My 25-year-old son, John, was diagnosed with schizophrenia over 10 years ago at the age of 15, although I later discovered that he had been hallucinating for years. At the time of his diagnosis, he was depressed and withdrawn. He was also cutting and burning himself, and he had violent outbursts. John was placed on the usual variety of medications. He's tried Thorazine, Risperdal, Zyprexa, Abilify, Geodone, Lithium, Depakote, Wellbutrin, Remeron, Prozac, Effexor, and Seroquel, and I probably don't recall quite a few others. The drugs caused very troubling side effects. He had facial tics, strange tongue movements, trembling, weight gain, and fatigue. Even on the medications, his life was miserable. He still suffered from paranoia and manic attacks. He was never able to have friends, live on his own, or complete his education. About 2 years ago, his illness became much worse, and the medication could no longer control his symptoms at all. He was too paranoid to go into public, certain that everyone was laughing at him, which made him very angry. He began to have violent fantasies of murdering people, both strangers and family members. One night, my youngest son woke up to find John standing over him with a knife, and after that, we locked our bedroom doors at night. And we kept any sharp instruments hidden for a long time. John started cutting himself several times per week, sometimes so seriously he had to go to the emergency room. He attempted suicide several times. Once he leaped in front of a moving truck, which barely missed him, and the violent attacks of rage and panic were happening almost daily. He was in and out of the local psychiatric hospital at least 6 times in the year. John's psychiatrist and the rest of my family felt he should be placed in the state hospital in Florida for long-term treatment, but I resisted. I felt like nothing the doctors had done so far had worked, and I didn't have much confidence in them. I just kept urging his doctors to try new medications and praying something would work. On October 22nd, 2004, I found the miracle I had been praying for when I met Julie Hilton. She told me about Dr. Hoffer's amazing work and shared Dr. Hoffer's books with me, as well as a book by Dr. Foster and others. At first, I didn't rush out to buy the supplements. I mean, how could something so simple work? I thought they were for people who maybe weren't as ill as my son. So I waited. About 2 weeks later, John went into the woods and sliced his wrist with a razor. He was only saved because his brother found him in time to stop the bleeding, and they got him to the hospital. At that time, I was certain he would kill himself and maybe even someone else, so I started him on the niacin. The first thing I tried was on a Friday night. I gave him one 500 milligram pill. The next day, he didn't have a manic attack. He's never had one again. He's never cut himself again, and he's never attempted suicide again after the first dose. Since then, we've raised his own dose to, well, first of all, when he started the niacin, he was on 600 milligrams of Effexor, 360 milligrams of Geodone, 10 milligrams of Zyprexa, and 2,000 milligrams of Depakote. We gradually raised the niacin over the first 2 weeks to 1,000 milligrams. At 1,000 milligrams, the paranoia was completely gone for the first time in over 10 years. We added other supplements and continued to see improvements. Now he takes 4.5 grams of niacin a day using a combo of regular and the no-flush niacinamide. He takes 600 milligrams of B6, and he also takes omega-3 fatty acid, vitamin C, magnesium, and zinc, and he recently began taking 5-HTP. He also takes a good multivitamin, and as Dr. Hoffer recommends, he's drastically cut his caffeine and sugar intake. He's reduced his prescription medication to 150 milligrams of Effexor, 240 of Geodone, and 10 milligrams of Zyprexa. And we will continue slowly to reduce his prescription medications. He's now free of all paranoia and delusions. In fact, he recently told me he can't believe the thoughts that were in his head. He now remembers to take his supplements and medication on his own, which is quite an accomplishment. He feels comfortable in crowds. He goes to the mall or Walmart without a second thought. He always dreamed of working on ships at sea, just like his father and his father's family. But it was unthinkable for John to do that. Well, on this very day, right now, John is on a boat in the Gulf of Mexico. He's been working out there for 2 months now. He goes out for 2 weeks and comes home for 2 weeks. That's quite an accomplishment for any young man, especially one with schizophrenia. He's happy, and I believe he meets Dr. Hoffer's criteria of being productive. He feels angry when he thinks of all the years that he suffered because we didn't know there was a treatment that works, and so do I. I am so grateful to Dr. Hoffer for his groundbreaking work, his courage, and his persistence. I'm grateful to Julie for introducing me to Dr. Hoffer's work, and I'm also grateful to God for answering my prayers. I am not a professional, I'm just a mother who tried this alone. You too can do this at home. Thank you, Dr. Hoffer.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this time I want to make an announcement. Janet Downing is not an actor. Well, now, that will surprise you, and I want to tell you why. In 1960, in Saskatoon, we had organized Schizophrenics Anonymous. Mr. Bill W., the co-founder of AA, was a very close friend of mine, and with his advice, we organized this club in Saskatoon. And this consisted of 1 or 2 people with the double diagnosis of alcoholism and schizophrenia, and the rest were all schizophrenic. And the usual procedure was they'd come to these meetings and they had fun with each other. They'd say, "Greetings and hallucinations today, and how are you?" And they'd say, "I am Mary and I am a schizophrenic." Then they'd tell their whole story about how they had recovered from their schizophrenia. Well, we have a town in Saskatchewan called Lloydminster, which is on the border between Saskatchewan and Alberta. And the community heard about this phenomenon, so they invited two of these women who were members of the group to come to Lloydminster to spend an evening with him and tell their story. And so they went. The 2 women went to this meeting and to tell their story. I didn't go, but I heard about it later on. At this meeting, after the second lady had gotten up and said, "I am Jean and I am a schizophrenic and this is my story," there was a young professor from the University of Alberta who was so distressed, he got up and he said, "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, these are actors Dr. Hoffer has hired." Couldn't be true. These are actors. They've been hired. So I said to one of my patients, and she's about a middle-aged, very intelligent woman, the wife of a university professor, an artist. And I said, "How did you do?" Well, she said, "I thought he was a young man and needed a bit of education." So she sat down beside him during their tea and then told him some of the details that she couldn't possibly say when she was speaking before the whole crowd. He then had the good grace to get up and apologize to the crowd because he had come along with this paranoid outburst. So that's why I wanted to assure you that Janet Downing is not an actor. The only actor we have here is Margie Kidder. And I'm very proud that she's here with us.
So realize that this is not just about schizophrenia. This is about treating all psychiatric conditions. Modern medicine has been told, or modern psychiatry is under the impression that drugs, and more drugs are the answer, but there are nutritional therapies that are actually much more effective.